country Venezuela today, here in this series of exploring what went on within regards to Jewish communities, especially at the moment we're concentrating on South America. We've spoken about various countries really, about Brazil, Uruguay, Cuba we spoke about, and now today we're going to speak and concentrate on Venezuela, the Jewish community, Jewish life, a bit of the history behind the country in of itself and the Jewish community over there respectively. Now the history of the Jewish community of Venezuela, I think it dates back, let's say, more towards the middle of the 17th century, when I think at that point in time there's records that will actually suggest that groups of Moranos, Spanish and Portuguese, descendants of baptized Jews, let's just say, who were suspected of secret adherence to Judaism, lived in areas such as Tucacas or Caracas, or another area called Maracaibo. Another Jewish community did not become established in Venezuela until the middle of the 19th century. Since there was a man with the name Hugo Chavez, he took power in all the way in 1999. Tension has existed between the government and Jewish population, which has obviously, this has resulted in many people, large numbers, emigrating. The majority of Venezuelan Jews today actually live in Israel, while modern day Venezuela continues to host a modest Jewish population. Let's explore some of the history. Let's talk more about the 1600s, respectively, 17th century. I think in 1693, a large group of, I think they were called the Granaz Jews, who originally were in Legon, left a Dutch colony of Curaçao for Tucacas at that point in time. With the settlements of Jews over there, the place became a lively commercial centre. The Jewish people, they were going to build houses, they grew cattle, they erected a fortress and built a synagogue. The Jewish people over there began to purchase cocoa beans and tobacco for the interior of Venezuela, respectively. That was popular. And mule trains, for example, carrying cocoa from New Granada and Culo would arrive into Caracas, respectively. So much would actually come, and they would sell their produce to the Jewish people and purchase textiles and other European goods in return. The attempts by Spanish forces to attack the settlement failed, owing to the protection of the Dutch naval units, the local Venezuelan population, and defense by the Jews themselves. Now, this Dutch enclave was under the command of someone named Jorge Christian, and more quickly of Tutacas, if I'm not mistaken, and Samuel Gradis Gabay, under the, let's say, the Senor do las Tucacas over there. Now, someone named Samuel was also a president of the Hebrew congregation, also known as, I think, Santa Irmandad, I think the Holy Brotherhood, that would be known as over here. Now, there was a lot happened that occurred in the 18th century, but just to speak now about the 19th century in of itself, we're talking about 1800. So anyone tuning in, we are exploring the history of the Jewish community of Venezuela here on the special edition over here. So that's very interesting. So just to go on, just to speak about it, we're just going to go back a bit to the 16th century because I just missed something out just beforehand while we were doing it. We're speaking originally. We said that Samuel was the president of the Hebrew congregation called Santa Imandad over there at that time, at that point in time. And there was much going on. I think there were key people in Venezuela in the 16th century. Garcia Gonzalez de Silva was a very, very key person. I think there was someone named Don Pedro, was part of, I think, eastern Venezuela in of itself, and other important figures. Malabar de Silva is another important figure, let us say. Remember, he will go from Peru to Venezuela at that stage in time, many Jewish people, and two key people at that point in time was the Hidalgo brothers, and they were, I think, part close to Borborata and other places in of itself. Now let's explore the 70s. That's the 16th century over here, and also speaking about the 17th century, let's speak a bit about the 18th century. Now, the 18th century, there was the Spanish provincial authorities. They collaborated with the Jews of Tucacas since they saw them, let's just say, as an outlet for export and supplies of much needed European goods, since the overextended Spanish fleet could not meet the demands of all the American colonies. At the end of 1717, the province of Venezuela became part of the viceroyalty of the Nueva Granada, which also included actual Colombia and Ecuador. The viceroy Jorge de Villangé because of complaints, let's say, from the Catholic clergy of the Inquisition and from Spain Crown, decided to emulate to Caracas. Pedro Jose de Oliveira was nominated, let's say, commissioner against, let's say, the so-called Jewish people that contraband trade. There were special army units of 40 ships reported over, was attacked and captured in the town in 1720. According to eyewitnesses, unfortunately, the synagogue was destroyed. You can see the anti-Semitism took place in 1700 in Venezuela, and the Jews very much the problems that actually occurred at that stage in time. Now, anyone tuning in live, we're recording a live video over here on the history of Venezuelan Jewry, the country of Venezuela. So if you're new to this channel over here today, please subscribe to our community, subscribe to the channel, it's for free, and join. We've got fantastic videos over here. So welcome everyone that's on. We've got 10 people watching live, the history of Venezuela Jewish community, 19th century Venezuela. Obviously, at the time period of the, let's say, the turn of the 19th century, Venezuela were fighting against the Spanish colonizers. I think that famously there was wars of independence. In 1812, someone named Simon Bolivar, let's say, was considered a liberator in Venezuela. He found refuge, material support for his army in the horns of Jews for Caracas at the time of British colony. The Jewish people, such as the person named Mordillo Ricardo and brothers Ricardo and Abraham Meza, offered hospitality and exhilarated Bolivar as he fought against the Spanish, thus establishing, let's say, brotherly relations between Jewish people and the newly independent Venezuelan Republic. Now, several Jewish people at that time of Corocoro, would actually, I believe, of Curazao, would fight the ranks in Bolivia's army during the war, as Admiral Louis Braun commanded at that stage in time of the Cayes naval expedition. There was someone named David Jaime de Moshe Lopez Penha would serve as a colonial infantry. Another key person was Benjamin Henriquez, who would become the captain of the cavalry, and Juan de Sola, who commanded in cavalry, let's say, at the Battle of the Carabobo, respectively, over there. In 1821, I think there was this fight for independence of Latin America. The ties between Jews and the Dutch island colonizers and Venezuela at that point in time increased more dramatically, especially between 1819 to 1821. After its constitution called for religious freedom. Come on, 1820, I believe, around that period, 1820, the Curiel was the first Jewish family that settled in the town of Santa Ana de Coro. The Jewish cemetery of Coro is the oldest, I think, Jewish cemetery in the continuous use in the Americas, respectively. Its origin can be, I think, located in the 19th century, when Sephardic Jews from the Dutch colony of Corocoa began to migrate to Venezuelan city of Santa Ana de Coro. And come the year 1824, I think that other Jewish communities began springing up in Caracas and Puerto Cabello, and in the 1840s, and in 1844, groups of Jews from Morocco, I think it was, came to the town of Barcelona. Unfortunately, years later, in 1854, there was unfortunately more anti-Semitic incidents that would actually take place. It was actually reported over at that point in time. Unfortunately, there was anti-Semitism all throughout over there. And I think there was a violent act of anti-Semitism that would mean the entire Coro Jewish population of 168 individuals was expelled by government back to Caracas. As they claimed Dutch citizenship, the Consul General for the Netherlands, Van Landsberg, informed the Home Government Amsterdam, and 3 warships were sent to La Guaira, the principal seaport of Venezuela, and the redress demanded was at once granted. The Venezuelan government agreed to salute the Dutch flag to restore the Jewish property in Coro and to pay, I believe, an indemnity of 200,000 pesos. This was $160,000 at that point in time. The last clause being carried out to effect in 1859. After lengthy diplomatic negotiations, there was an ambassador of Netherlands at that point in time, someone named John O. Van Ries, I think. And the assimilation of the Jews in Venezuela was difficult. But in the last decade of the 19th century, there was, there were small communities that were found in Puerto Cabello and in Coro, in Caracas, and in Marcabillo, and Villa de Cura, and Barcelona, and Rio Chico, and various other places also. So that was over there at that point in time. Please, anyone that's joining in the channel at the moment here on our community, Please subscribe to the channel. We've got fantastic content over here, and we're exploring, doing a special edition over here of the history of the Jewish community of Venezuela of yesteryear and current year. So please, everyone, enjoy, educate, and we're now speaking about the 20th century Venezuela. I think it was April 1902, the start of the 20th century. It was, I think there started to be political tensions between Netherlands and Venezuela to evacuate, let's say, the Jews of Coro to Curaçao. The HMLMS Koningin Regentes and the HMLMS Utrecht arrived in Venezuela, the port of La Goria. Prior to their arrival, the Venezuelan Navy had repeatedly checked Dutch and Antillean merchant ships, and the presence of the Dutch warships acted as a deterrent against further actions. Immigration restrictions were placed on Jews in the early part of the 20th century and were abolished in the 1950s. I think, about 1950, there was around 6,000 Jewish people in Venezuela, and the biggest waves of immigration occurred after World War II and the 1967 war. That was obviously in Israel, where we, Baruch Hashem, got back the Kotel, already the Western Wall. The Jewish population in Venezuela was largely centered in Caracas, with smaller concentrations in Maracaibo. Most of Venezuelan Jews, let's say, are either first or second generation at the point in time. I think let's backtrack a bit, back to 1907. The Israelite Beneficial Society, this society I think we mentioned about on various occasions before, which became the Israelite Association of Venezuela. I think in 1919 it was created, an organization to bring Jews who were scattered throughout the country together. Jewish prayer, for example, and holiday services took place in small houses in Caracas and towns like Los Tuques and La Goria. Come what 1917, the number of Jewish citizens rose to 475 and to 888. Come what 1926. 1920s and 1930s, the Jewish community began to develop with the arrival of North African and Eastern European Jews. Jewish immigration from Eastern and Central Europe increased after 1934, but by then Venezuela had imposed specific, let's say, restrictions on Jewish immigration, which remained in effect until the 1950s, respectively, which is very, very interesting. So, and that's something that we have to point out. Now, let's just go back to it. And I think there was turbulent economic and political climate of the 1930s. Few countries were willing to accept the influx of Jewish people. I think come July 1938, 32 nations, included Venezuela, convened to address the Jewish, let's say, issues at that point in time. The US, Britain and France were all reluctant to commit themselves to significant, let's say, amounts of people of any sort. Only the Dominican Republic stepped forward and offered a haven to stateless and persecuted German and Austrian Jews. 1939, steamboats, I think Koenigsegg and in Caribe, left Nazi Germany and docked in Venezuela, thanks to good officers of President Eleazar Lopez Contreras. One Jewish refugee commented in the Venezuelan newspaper, La Extra, "Imagine our joy at being free and far from a land in which everything threatened us with death. It is such a holy occurrence, given that we were expelled from Germany, and you have embraced us." Now, the ambassador at the time, someone named Jose Nicote Sardi, in his diplomatic work in Europe during the Second World War, he was a defender of the rights of Jewish people, and later in promoting the creation of the State of Israel. Great person. There was a Nicote Sardi, was the first president of the Committee of the Hebrew Palestine in Venezuela, and let's say he spearheaded efforts to promote the same across Latin America. Come on, 1947, the United Nations Assembly vote to create the State of Israel. Venezuela's ambassador, someone named Carlos Eduardo Storic in Mendoza, was accompanied by a high-level delegation, which included former founding members of the above-mentioned Venezuelan committee at that point in time, such as Venezuelan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, someone named Andres Eloy Bianco, and Ambassador Nicote Sardi. They posed, I think, at that point in time in Cuba. By the time, in spite of immigration restrictions, there were around 6,000 people in Venezuela. Now, the biggest waves, let's say, of immigration occurred obviously after World War II and the Six-Day War, which we talked about before. They were mostly Jews from Sephardic Jews that arrived and settled mostly in the capital of Caracas. Coinciding with that influx, in the mid-60s, the first Chabad representative moved to the country in order to service the many Jews that had made Venezuela their home. The Jewish population in Venezuela peaked at 45,000 people, largely centered in Caracas, but with smaller concentrations at that point in time. In Maracaibo, most of Venezuelan Jews, as we said before, were either first or second generation. Now, anyone tuning in live on this video, we are speaking over here about the Jewish community in Venezuela here on the special edition over here. So please, everyone, subscribe to the channel. If you are new over here to the channel, to the community, we do lots of great content on here. So please enjoy, sit back, and we appreciate you joining our channel and subscribe. We really, really appreciate that. Now, Venezuela itself was hospitable to Jewish life and developed, let's say, Jewish community over there, developed deep ties to the country and a strong sense of patriotism, accumulating and settling into comfortable live and let live rapports with the government over there. According to a man named David Harris, executive director of the American Jewish Committee, he says they have developed an impressive communal infrastructure built around the central umbrella organization called La Confederación de Asociación Israelita de Venezuela, the CAIV, with which the American Jewish Committee signed an association agreement last year. 15 synagogues, all but one Orthodox, and perhaps the most striking of all, a Jewish all-in-one campus, Habrieko, combining Jewish nursery and day schools, a country club, cultural center, a verdant setting, and wide-ranging sports activities. To say that Habrieko serves as focus for much of the community. The results of these communal efforts speak for themselves. The community is close-knit, overwhelming majority of Jewish children attend Jewish schools that we can learn about. The level of participation is high. Identification with Israel is, I think, is great, and intermarriage rates are low compared to the United States and Britain, which is obviously an interesting fact to point out over there. So that's, and he actually continues over here. What is equally striking in talking with Venezuelan Jews, to the extent that generalizations are ever possible, is an obvious pride in being Venezuelan. Not only do they continue to appreciate the refuge the country provided, the Jews having come in search of safety and opportunity, but they also recognize the country's post-war record of tolerance and relative absence of anti-Semitism, as well as its support of the 1947 UN resolution calling for the establishment of the Jewish state. So these are key factors over here. Now let's talk about 21st century immigration. Now, according to Latin American Jewish Congress, Venezuela's Jewish community had an estimated 22,000 people when Chavez took office in 1999. In the early 2000s, immigration of Venezuelan Jews to Israel would now grow steadily. The Al Jazeera Journal stated that this immigration from Venezuela occurred due to the country's economic crisis, as well as anti-Semitic rhetoric, unfortunately, that crept in more, I think, at that point in time in the 2000s, early 2000s, that had marked, let's say, the left-wing regime support for Iran, Syria, and Palestinian, let's say, Islamist organizations like Hamas, and the first Chavez and now Maduro had found political uses for, unfortunately, there was anti-Jewish rhetoric over there at that stage in time. Anyone joining in, we're doing a live video at the moment here of the country Venezuela, the Jewish community. So please subscribe to the channel and join our community here. We've got fantastic video content here, so I'll appreciate it. We're coming near to 8,000 subscribers, so please subscribe. Now, come on, I think it was the year 2007, 18 years ago, there was concerns of rising allegations of anti-Semitism. Now, immigration saw Venezuela's 20,000 Jewish population drop by 20%, I think, to 45%. For instance, the Latin American Jewish Congress estimated in 2007 only between 12 to 13,000 Jews still resided in Venezuela. November the 10th would see more than 50,000 of Jewish Venezuelans leaving the country since Chavez came to power, with some of those remaining behind complaining of official anti-Semitism. Early 2013, only 9,000 Jews lived there. Come on, 2020 reported there was under 6,000 Jews there at that point in time. So you can see, now, among destinations for this large amount of thousands of Jews leaving Venezuela, many people go to the United States of America, to Miami, most of them. Others will go to Israel, to Panama, Colombia, Mexico, Costa Rica, and Guatemala also. And obviously there was an economic crisis of Venezuela of the 2010s. Jewish immigration also, let's say, rapidly increased. Many people going to USA and Panama, respectively. So anti-Semitism has unfortunately always occurred to some specific extent in Venezuela. I think since Hugo Chavez took power in 1999, there's been much more, let's say, accusations of anti-Semitism. And members of the World Jewish Congress and Simon Wiesenthal Center have portrayed comments from Chavez as anti-Semitic, reading Wikipedia over here, including comparing other politicians to really nasty people, let's just say, in of itself. So that's something that we have to point out. Famous people from Venezuela, let's just speak a little bit with regards to that, just famous personalities. Harry Abent was a sculptor, for example. Yvonne Attas was an actress. Lionel Velasco, a composer, musician. Sarah Ben-Han, a physician, a Venezuelan one. Amador Ben-Dayan, an actor, comedian. Jose Baracas Anram, an entrepreneur. There was Manuel Blum, a computer scientist. Carlos Bandit, writer, philosopher. Jacques Brunzi, economist, and various other in a secular field were famous people in himself. Now we can explore some of the rabbis also. Dear friends, anyone joining in, we're exploring the history of Venezuela Jewish community. Please subscribe, friends, to our channel over here. We do fantastic content, so I really, really do appreciate you joining. Thanks. Let's speak about some rabbis over here. Now, and just to start off this work, there was a rabbi that was quite close with Venezuela. He was a chief rabbi of Buenos Aires, but I think he had close ties also to Venezuela. Rabbi Isaac Saka, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's actually there now at the moment, but I think he corresponds with, let's say, the Venezuelan community. He actually was studying Purat Yosef when he was younger in the old city of Jerusalem, and studied at Yechevei Dat Beit Midrash also. And he received, I think, he was a group of students that was directed by Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, the chief rabbi of Israel. And I think Rabbi Saka was considered one of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's closest students. I think, just speaking about Rabbi Saka, he's a key rabbi in Argentina. I think from 1989 to 1997, he led the Yosef Dat and taught at Bet David Yeshiva within the same community. And he found menorah organization, strengthening Jewish identity among South American, Argentinian youth. He was a Sephardic chief rabbi since 1997 of Buenos Aires, respectively, and was, let's just say, a key person in of itself. And he meets, I think, with various different leaders and has written various different books in of itself. So that's what we're going. He's in South America now. Another key rabbi in Venezuela, the Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Venezuela, is a rabbi named Rabbi Pinchas Brenner. He was born actually back in the year 1931, so he's about, at this point in time, about 94 years of age. He started, I believe, his role as being a head rabbi in Venezuela, in Caracas, in 1967. Now, he was born in the area, Rabbi Pinchas Brenner, in Tajzauxi. This was in Poland. And at the age of 4, he would emigrate with his family to Peru. So he's got now already a South American pedigree. He received his BA, Bachelor of Arts, and Rabbinic Ordination from Yeshiva University, and his master's degree from Columbia University, and as a PhD, I believe, in Bar Ilan University. Now, his rabbinic career, especially in the 1960s, Rabbi Brenner served as a rabbi in Queens in New York. In 1967, he was appointed the Ashkenazic chief rabbi at that stage in time of Caracas. And come August 9, 2019, the disputed president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido, appointed Rabbi Brenner as official envoy to Israel, even though the two countries did not, let's say, have at that point in time diplomatic relations. Now, Rabbi Brenner is a president of the Committee of Liaisons between, let's say, churches and synagogues in Venezuela, and a member of the board of directors of Bar Ilan University in Israel. He is the author of several books about Judaism, including the El Dialgo Eterno, the Las Estrus, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Hombres Ideas, and the Fi y Razon. I think all published by the World Zionist Organization's Department of Education and Culture in the Diaspora. He's also written Tradition y Akiludot, various different other writings and publications, I think published by the Monte Avila Editores of Caracas. He also co-edited with Marianne Becker and Thea Siegel the book, I think called Les Synagogos Sebran al Munda. He's a regular columnist also in newspapers such as El Nacional, El Universal, and the Venezuelan Jewish community newspaper called the Nuevo Mundo Israeliti. That's also another interesting thing. And he is a close friend of another, I think, famous rabbi of Rabbi Arthur Schneier of Park East Synagogue, and he has internal projects of Cafe Convy and a website. His digital platform has been running since 2012. It has a presence on various different social platforms, including YouTube, which we're recording this on at the moment. So it's let's just say in of itself. Now, another key rabbi let's speak about over here is Rabbi Isaac Cohen. He also is a key rabbi, I think, in Venezuela recent, and he also speaks in various different newspapers. I think especially he's all over the world. Let's just say in of itself, and I've spoken about many of the Rabbi Isaac Cohen, the various different issues surrounding not just in Venezuela, the politics of Venezuela. He happens to be, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Sephardic chief rabbi of Venezuela. I'm not too sure if that's still the case. He's lived in Venezuela for more than 40 years. He's a spiritual leader of the Venezuelan Israelite Association and an advocate for maintaining ties between Venezuela and Israel. Rabbi Isaac Cohen is. So another rabbi which we should speak about, I think Rabbi David Chokron, who happens to be head of a synagogue and the Jewish school in the capital of Caracas, and he speaks very much, I think, to various different news outlets all over the world, in Israel. And Rabbi Chokron was talking about the Jewish community, how they maybe got hurt very, very badly at the time of the economic depression and economic challenges that were in Venezuela, where the country's hyperinflation. This was in the 2010s. And he talked about, he actually heads, Rabbi Chokron, the Or Torah Synagogue, and it's a principal also of the Talmud Torah called the Sinai School in Venezuela. Rabbi Chokron is in of itself. So he's another key figure, let's just say, rabbinic figure in Venezuela also. So that's very interesting. So he's another, definitely a key figure over there. We're just exploring. Anyone that's joining us at the moment, we're talking about the history of the Venezuelan Jewish community over here in this special edition over here. Now, there's a Chabad synagogues, for example, Hogar Jabad Lubavitch, a Lubavitch synagogue, which I think is Caracas in Venezuela. They've got various different shluchim, famous ones. Rabbi Yeshua David Rosenblum, I think his wife, also Rabbinit Chana Rosenblum, Rabbi Hillel Levinson, and Rabbinit Mushki Levinson, if I'm not mistaken. And I think there's they do a lot of activity also once again in Venezuela. I think many of them came from around the world. I think there's Camp Gan Israel. I think that was in Parksville in New York, and they come for conferences and they speak about different. They grapple with different issues going on all over the world in Venezuela, but they're doing fantastic work also in Venezuela. Let's speak a bit about the synagogues in Venezuela, the key ones, let's say the famous ones over there. One of them is called the Coro Synagogue. This is I don't know if it's still running, maybe it's now running as a museum. It's located on Talavera Street in the city of Santa Ana de Coro, Falcon, Venezuela. That's a city located near the Caribbean sea coast and the Dutch island of Coroco. It's one of the oldest synagogues in Latin America. Now, the former synagogue of Talavera Street was originally built as a house in the first half of the 18th century, I think by at one time, the Lieutenant Governor of Coro, Don Francisco Companzo Polanco, as his residence. The house would then be purchased on July the 30th in 1847 by someone named David Abraham Sr. He happened to be a Sephardic trader from Curacao. He is senior living and formed part of the city's growing Jewish community. Prior to Senior's purchase of the Talavera Street House, the community used to gather at the house of David Valencia to pray. It is, I believe, known that approximately 20 people gathered there for Shabbat and daily prayer services. Senior's son Isaac and his descendants continued living in Talavera Street House, I believe. They would, at that point in time, they would continue living there and in the Talavera Street House and using one of its rooms as a prayer hall until the 1880s. Now, there was an acquisition by the Venezuelan government. Come on, February 6, 1986. The house was bought by the government of Venezuela, and on August 3rd, 1997, the government of Falcon State reopened the house and named the Casa de Oración Hebrea, Hebrew prayer house over there, as an important cultural contribution that forms part of the Sephardic heritage in northern Venezuela region. The former synagogue in Talavera Street is located in the city's old quarter, Its floor was covered in the sand of the Medanos de Coro in the same fashion as the sea sand that covers the floor of the Mikveh Israel Emmanuel Synagogue in Kurokawa, from where the community, I think, arrived from more than 2 centuries prior. Very, very interesting. So you can see the rich heritage over here of this specific synagogue in itself. The former synagogue is part of the Alberto Henrique Museum of Arts, which belongs to Universidad Francisco de Miranda. I think come on to 2009. The university collected the Israelite Association of Venezuela to seek support for the restoration and maintenance of the former synagogue. Very, very interesting. That's a bit of history with regards to synagogues. We're exploring now the history of the synagogues over here in Venezuela. So please, everyone joining in at the moment, please subscribe to our channel. Let's get to 8,000 subscribers by let's hope by the month of Kislev, which I think we can do. But maybe even the next 2 weeks. Let's get to that, so please subscribe. Now, the next synagogue is in Caracas, the Bet El Synagogue, the House of God, as they say. Obviously, an Orthodox congregation and synagogue located on Anavida Carigel in the San Bernardino neighborhood of Caracas in Venezuela. The congregation, I think, is affiliated with the Israelite Association of Venezuela, and obviously it's a Sephardic synagogue. And I think the rabbi of the synagogue is Rabbi Isaac Sananes. Now, this synagogue was built, I think, in 1969, more recently, in 1973, partly thanks to the Brazilian banker Edmund Safra, who actually recorded a video on Edmund Safra. The congregation comprises mostly of Jewish people from Aleppo, Syria, from Melilla in Spain, and northern Morocco, especially from Tetuan and Chefchaouen. Now, the synagogue can accommodate as many as 300 people in the men's section alone. With its adorned, let's just say at that point in time, stained glass windows designed by Israeli artist Yaakov Agam. In addition to this, the wall that contains a heichal, let's say, is a sculpture made by the Venezuelan artist, someone named Harry Abend, and can accommodate about 100 people in the one section. There's Rat Nashim, respectively. The synagogue also has a large lounge basement used for celebrations like bar mitzvah, bat mitzvahs, wedding receptions, meals, sheva brachot. And I think this was actually inaugurated in the year 1988. On the top floor of the building, next to the area of, let's say, prayers used by women, is a study hall, a bet midrash. I think available in the synagogue are Torah, like with Rashi, Tefillot books, prayer books, and with Spanish translations, if I'm not mistaken. People aren't fluent in, let's just say, in Hebrew. Totally. But Rabbi Isaac Sananas, I believe, is the current rabbi over there. We'll maybe hopefully speak about some of these rabbis in the coming minutes. Another synagogue over there is the Tiferet Israel Synagogue. I think it's located in El Recreo, close to the Plaza Venezuela in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. And it's actually the headquarters of the Israelite Association of Venezuela. I think it was in 1954. The Sephardic Jewish community of Caracas reached an agreement to buy private land in Mari Perez, Caracas, in order to build a synagogue, to replace one located in the El Condor area, which had been demolished as part of the construction of the Bolivia Avenue at that point in time, the main highway during that specific point in time it happened to be. And so what's interesting is, that was finally in 1956, the first stone was laid, the synagogue was formally inaugurated and opened to the public, come what 1963. Since then served as a religious synagogue for the Jewish community of Caracas. I think sadly in 2009 there was an attack. I think in late January 2009 it happened to be. The synagogue was badly damaged in a well-organized attack, unfortunately. You can see the anti-Semitism all throughout. Let's say over here. Following escalating tensions between the Israeli and Venezuelan governments, and after the Gaza, I think there was war in 2008-2009, the attack followed an article inciting anti-Semitic violence, which appeared later removed and replaced by an apology. I think especially on the government websites, just using Wikipedia here as a source within regards to just this article over here. For instance, anyone that's tuning in, we're recording the video, historic video on the Jewish community of Venezuela at the moment. So please, everyone, if you haven't joined yet, please subscribe to our channel now. We're nearing at the moment 8,000 subscribers. So please, everyone, really appreciate it. Okay, so there was obviously an armed gang that consisted, let's say, of 15 unidentified men. They broke into synagogue, tied and gagged security guards, reported over, and occupied a building for several hours. Unfortunately, there's anti-Israel graffiti, anti-Semitic graffiti dubbed on the walls, and the synagogue office, the Holy Ark, was ransacked. They also called Jews to be expelled from the country. Now, I think at that point in time, Venezuela's foreign minister, someone named Nicolas Maduro, condemned the act as a criminal act of vandalism. The information minister, Jesse Chacon, also condemned the attack and denied it had any connection with the government. 3 former policemen and 3 civilians were found guilty and sentenced at the end of 10 years in jail. That's what's reported over here, using Wikipedia as a source. Let's explore some more of the rabbis from Venezuela that came from Venezuela. One of them is Rabbi Shimon ben Zaken. He was actually from Melilla. He's from Melilla in Spanish Morocco, in North Africa. I think when he was only 14 years of age, he would study for 10 years at Yeshiva Netzach Israel in Sunderland, in the United Kingdom, in England. Then 3 years afterwards, he studied at the Etz Chaim Yeshiva in London, after which he accepted the position of assistant rabbi, minister of the South End Westcliff Hebrew congregation in Essex, near London, England, where Rabbi Ben Zaken would serve for 10 years there. During the first 2 years of his position in Essex, also known as East London, he also attended Jewish College University, a Jewish college thing now, with an emphasis of Chazanut over there. Rabbi Ben Zaken will earn a Bachelor's of Arts in Jewish Studies at the Jewish College in London, and will graduate with honours issued by the National Council of Academic Awards of England. At the same time, he studied for his rabbinical diploma, which I think he received in the Rabbinical Academy of Marseille in France. He was very, very well travelled over. He would live in London, and I think he got married to his wife, Rabbinit Cecilia Margulis. I think their first children include Jonathan, Tanya, and Anna Eliza, were born over there, and later the family would move to Venezuela, where Rabbi Ben Zaken would end up holding a position at that point in time. I think he would become the spiritual leader of the combined Sephardic and Ashkenazi communities. Upon the retirement at that point in time, there was another rabbi in Venezuela, someone named Rabbi Solomon Maimon. And come with the year 1987, he served as co-chair of the board of rabbis of the American Sephardi Federation, along with another rabbi, Rabbi Mark Angel of New York City. Rabbi Ben Zaken was appointed vice president of the Rabbinical Council of America, and in 1992 and in 1993, Rabbi Ben Zaken became a member of the Executive Council of Sephardi Rabbis of the United States of America and of Canada. Rabbi Ben Zaken also is a mohel, a rabbi that performs circumcision, Brit Milahs respectively. He's a sofer for Sifrei Torah, writing different Torah scrolls. Also, mezuzot, he is so a sofer sam, and he's a noted artist, let's say, for his unique style of calligraphy, painted and decorated ketubot. He's very famous. I think in 1987, he would, at that stage in time, co-chair the board of rabbis for the American Sephardi Federation with Rabbi Mark Angel of New York City. And I think he was appointed the vice president of the Rabbinical Council of America in 1992 and in 1993. Rabbi Ben Zaken was, so very prominent positions over there. He was one of 4 rabbis, if I'm not mistaken, from Seattle, who in 1985 introduced legislation stating that food items which are labelled kosher must meet the requirements of Jewish dietary laws. The law forbids sale of any product which is falsely identified as kosher as a violation of Consumer Protection Act. That's actually interesting. Rabbi Ben Zaken took his religious skills at that point in time to benefit the members of his synagogue and the greater Seattle community. And such as receiving certification as a mohel, he would receive it in 1987. And I think in 2003, Rabbi Ben Zaken took a sabbatical year to study in the Dayanut training program at the Sheba Sephardic Center in Israel. And he became certified by the Jerusalem Rabbinate as a Dayan for arranging, let's say, divorce documents, gittin, as they call it, and he's a member of the Executive Council of Sephardic Rabbis of the United States and Canada, respectively. Anyone tuning in live, we're doing a live video at the moment here on the Venezuelan Sephardic jury over here, in this special edition over here. So please, anyone that's joining in, please subscribe to the channel now and join our community as we are learning about the history of Venezuelan Jewry. I'm just going to take a 1 minute break, friends. We're learning over here about the history of Venezuela, the Jewish community over here. So just bear with me for a minute, just taking a regular 1 minute break, which, hi, everything okay? How long do you think it will take? Oh, wow. Can you, oh, wow, okay. Can you give me 10 more minutes? I'm just in the middle of a live video. It's like a lot, I thought it would be like a couple of hours. Yeah, can you give me that? Okay. Yeah, 10, 15 minutes. Okay, yes. Well, can I meet you? So where do you want me to meet you? Tell me exactly. Okay. So maybe by the whatever you needed from the pharmacy now, okay? Okay, take care. Okay, bye. Yes, sorry about that. It was just a short break over here. We're exploring the history of Venezuelan Jewry over here. So everyone on this live edition. Now, Rabbi Yaakov Ben Zaken, another Venezuelan rabbi I actually personally know. He was born to a Spanish Moroccan family, community leaders in Caracas, Venezuela. Rabbi Ben Zaken was, let's say, very much he is very much active with regards to educational positions. Not just in Jerusalem, he was active, also in California. He's been very active in London. I think he's got a degree in industrial engineering, if I'm not mistaken, from Columbia University in New York. He studied in various yeshivot in Israel and has rabbinic coordination from Rav Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg. He has been working in Jewish Learning Exchange, I think, in England for many, many years. He is both a rabbi and a posek of the Tzur Yisrael Synagogue, a Gibraltarian congregation in Hendon. And there's also the Federation's Tiferet Eyal, also another synagogue over there. And I think he's got halachic expertise and a rabbinic ordinator of the KF organization, also certified plants worldwide, responsible, let's just say, with liaising with KF certified clients and fields all over the world. So he's a rabbi I know personally. Another rabbi, I think, from Venezuela is Rabbi Moises Ben Zaken. So you can see the Ben Zaken family itself is a famous Venezuelan rabbinic family. Now, he attended, I believe, public school in his hometown of Melilla in Spain, and he would continue, I think, at that point in time, his high education in England, Rabbi Moises did. I'm not so sure how they're all connected together, if it's one big family or not. Seemingly, this is a famous... If you're talking about Venezuela, the Ben Zaken family, without doubt, probably in the last 50, 100 years, is probably the most famous rabbinic one. That's one thing that we'll say at the moment. He would receive a BA degree with honours from the Jews College, once again, which is an affiliate, I believe, of the University of London. And I think he obtained his rabbinic coordination from the Sephardic chief rabbi, Rabbi Shalom Mashash in Israel, and would head the Spanish-Portuguese Holland Park Synagogue, famous place that we've spoken about on various occasions before. He was the first pulpit from 1975 to 1981, and he would study Dayanut at the Yeshiva University and become a judge in Jewish law. He was called by the Kahal Yosef congregation to resume rabbinic, let's say, duties in July 1983. He worked aside with other great rabbis, including Rabbi Elias Levi, for example, and then would scroll as spiritual leader, I think, come December 1987. He would, let's say, organize classes and mass programs for several hundred young people. And I think he would spend as many as 12 years, if I'm not mistaken, as spiritual leader in the West Coast Torah Center. And also, I think he would be connected very much to Torah College in Los Angeles also. And more can actually be related within regards to him. He was, I think, responsible in working for Kosher LA, if I'm not mistaken, about kashrut. Another one, Rabbi Simon Ben Zaken, over here, who we've spoken about, I think, possibly a few minutes ago. We mentioned him, I think, just beforehand, how he would work in Essex and so on and so forth. So he's another key rabbi. He could also be known as Rabbi Shimon Ben Zaken, also respectively. Okay, let's speak a bit more. I think another rabbi over there is Rabbi Shimon Beros, who's the Sephardic rabbi of the Caracas community. I think he's actually connected with the Sephardic Rabbinic Center in America. So that's something that we have to point out also. It's actually interesting, just going back to Rabbi Shimon Ben Zaken also, how we spoke about how he was a key rabbi, and he was also the spiritual leader of the congregation Ezra Basaroth, I believe, and obviously we mentioned about him before, how he had a huge integral role in various different places in England and how he studied in a rabbinical academy in France. And he also had rabbinical positions, just to add on, Rabbi Shimon ben Zaken, in not just in Venezuela, also in Seattle, in San Francisco, and various other places. I forgot to also mention before, he was a member of the Va'ada Rabbanim of the Greater Seattle and serves as a Dayan on that specific Bet Din itself, respectively. And so we talk about how he has just in all realms of Jewish cycle life, how great it is. Now, just going back to Venezuela itself as a country, just because we don't really mention much about this, it's a country rich in oil and full of natural beauty, let us say. After the First World War, the economy of Venezuela, agriculture, let's say, transformed into an oil economy, and the country's wealth and high degree of tolerance began to attract, let's say, at that point in time, after the Second World War, a large influx of immigrants because of these reasons. And many Jewish people will actually come to Venezuela at that point in time. And very, very interesting. Now, we mentioned about the history of Venezuelan Jewry. We mentioned about it before. It begins actually in the 17th century when I think Philip III, the King of Portugal and Spain, allowed Portuguese converts, the people, let's just say, at that point in time, to settle in the overseas colonies. Many left for the New World, including Venezuela. Now, converts were obviously known to have settled in Maracaibo and in Caracas, respectively, over there. The Inquisition's activity at that point in time was sporadic, and that would, I think, Joseph Diaz Pimenta was arrested and sentenced, unfortunately, to death in the Holy Office in 1720 over there. And there was a whole, we've spoken about the Iberian converts at that point in time. They would settle in Venezuela from Livorno, for example, and you can see the Venezuelan Jewish community itself, I think, very much originates from the 17th, 18th and 19th century. Jewish presence, I think, in the Caribbean itself dates back to the first decades of the 17th century. And the Dutch Jews, for example, were attracted to trade opportunities in Venezuela and let's say in those main islands in of itself, respectively. And the history of the Jews of Caraco will be intertwined with future Jewish communities in Venezuela. I think it was in 1693 a group of Jewish people left Livorno and left Caraco and settled in Tucacas on the Venezuelan coast. They founded the first Jewish community, Venezuelan lands, the Holy Brotherhood, and I think various different records would actually disappear at that point in time, and so on and so forth. Now, the Dutch presence in the region gave a new direction to regional trade until then, and I think Spain at that point in time, they exercised a commercial monopoly in that was in the colonies all around Europe, and with regards to trade during that specific era in of itself. Now, I think it was around the year 1710, just to add on more, several attempts to destroy Tucas would actually, unfortunately, bear. I think at that point in time, the Dutch Christians and Jews were back there. The Jews were led by someone named Samuel Hebrio, who founded an organized community, soon building the first synagogue in Venezuela. I think in 1720, those trading posts was again raised by Venezuelan forces, who destroyed the synagogue and sent the city's inhabitants to flight at that point in time. Let's say something about Samuel Hebrio. He was also known as Samuel Gradis Gabbai. Now, anyone just tuning in at the moment, we are exploring the history of Venezuelan Jewry, the Jewish community in Venezuela. It's a special edition over here, where we're speaking about the great synagogues there might have been in Venezuela of yesteryear, and the great academies and Torah learning what actually happened with the community as time evolved over here. So anyone that's new to the channel, joining us here, please subscribe to our channel now and join. Really, really appreciate it, friends, and fantastic content. Now, Samuel Hebrio was known as Samuel Gradis Gabbai. He was a Sephardic Jewish leader in the early 18th century, Venezuelan commercial port of Tucacas. Under his leadership, the local Jewish community would flourish and build the first synagogue in Venezuela at that point in time. Now, what is Tucacas? This is a town on the northeastern coast of Venezuela, surrounded by two rivers, making access from the interior of Venezuela difficult. I think come what the year 1693 it was, a large group of Jews originating from Legon left Caraco, and the settlement of Jews, the place would become a lively commercial center. The Jews built houses, they grew cattle at that stage in time, erected fortresses, they built synagogues, they began to purchase at that stage in time cocoa beans from the interior of Venezuela, and mule trains carrying cocoa from Colombia and Ecuador, respectively, so very well traveled. They would arrive in Caracas, sell their produce to Jews, and purchase textiles and other European goods in return. The attempts, let's say, by Spanish forces at that stage in time to attack the settlement failed, owing to the protection of Dutch naval units, the local Venezuelan population, I think, and the defense by the Jews themselves. The Dutch enclave was under the command of George A. Christian, Marquis of Caracas, and Samuel Hebrio, who we mentioned just beforehand, and Samuel Gradis Gabay, who we just mentioned about. And under, let's just say, Samuel Hebrio, who is a key figure, let's just say here, at that stage in time, was the president of the Hebrew congregation called Santa Hermandad, the Holy Brotherhood. At that stage in time, he happened to be. The Spanish provincial authorities collaborated with the Jews since they saw them as an outlet for export and supplies of much needed European goods, since the overextended Spanish fleet could not meet the demands of all its American colonies. Now, come 1917, the province of Venezuela became part, let's just say, of the viceroyalty of Nueva Granada, which also included at that point in time Colombia and Ecuador. Now, the viceroy, George A. de Villalonga, I think because of complaints from the Catholic clergy, was nominated commissioner against the so-called Jewish contraband trade, which we spoke about before. There was special army and 40 ships, I think, attacked at that stage in time and captured the town in 1720. According to eyewitnesses, the synagogue was destroyed, and they left Caracas on 30 to 40 ships. This using just various different details chronicled over with regards to what happened. So I think come 1819 to 1825, there was deep economic crisis that would hit Caracas, and many Jewish abandoned the island, and they would leave. A large number of Jews settled in Venezuela, mainly in the city of Coro, where obviously we mentioned that the presence of would actually date back from the 17th century. The first Jewish family settled in the city in 1820, and 10 years later, I believe, the Jewish community of Coro, which included 19 Sephardic families, was a cradle of Venezuelan Judaism at that stage in time. The success of Jews could not go unnoticed, and you can see the blessing that actually comes when Jewish populations come to various countries. Very much was demonstrated over there in that specific point in time in itself. I think in 1831, the city's, I think it was called, Criollo inhabitants staged an uprising against, let's say, rapid economy progress that was achieved at that point in time. And I think Jewish trade in January 1855, there was unfortunately more anti-Semitism in the country, where there was anti-Jewish demonstrations that would take place at that point in time, and it was expulsion of Jews from an independent nation in South America. 3 years later, some Jews returned. It was reported over having received a guarantee of safety from the new military governor. However, they are far outnumbered by those who had left, and in 1993 Coro was declared a cultural heritage of humanity by the UNESCO, and in 2004 the ancient Jewish cemetery of Coro, with tombs dating back to 1832, became a historical monument over that point in time. So that's very, very interesting. At the moment, friends, everyone, we are exploring the history of Venezuelan Jewry over here on this special edition. We're actually speaking all about the various different, let's say, just Sephardic populations we're trying to explore on. Especially at the moment, we are working on South America. We've already recorded about the history of the country Uruguay. We've recorded about Brazil. We've recorded about Peru also, and we happen to be speaking about, yesterday actually we recorded a video within regards to Panama also, Central American country. So today we are recording about the country Venezuela at the moment. We're exploring the various different rabbis and the various different synagogues that were of yesteryear, the population, and just to recap it, because I'm gonna have to take a break in 1 minute, just a break, so just to do just a bit of repetition of what we've actually achieved today, because we did achieve a huge amount so far. We've spoken about the various different famous synagogues, about this great community in Venezuela, how it was very many points of time, by and large, it's been very good for the Jewish community. But I think in recent years, with the economic situation inside the country and new government, I think in 1999, it's really unfortunately shocked, let's just say, the Venezuelan community, the Jewish community, to a high degree in of itself, which has been very, very problematic, let's just say, and really hurted the Jewish community. And obviously we hope for better times. Now the community, I think currently, is only about 5, 6, 7, 8,000. And it's really, really shrunk in recent years. Obviously, many people were moved to the United States of America. Many people would have moved at this stage in time to places like Panama, Costa Rica, and also many have moved to Israel also. So very, very interesting. So friends, we're going to take a break in a minute. So please just ask me a favor. Please subscribe to the channel. We want to get to 8,000 subscribers, hopefully Bezrat Hashem, in the next, by the end of the month. So that would be a phenomenal achievement if we can achieve that. I'm going to be back in about 5 minutes over here. So watch your space, and I'll be back then. And yeah, just nothing like exploring Jewish history and, getting inspired and so on and so forth. And, this is not the same country. So we'll be back soon. Because of the long break. Yeah. So I hope the video is going to continue. We just took a break for a few minutes with regards to the history of Venezuelan Jewry over here on this special live edition. We're exploring the history of the Jewish Venezuela of yesteryear. We've been talking about, just to recap, as we just came back, just relocated to another location at this point in time, about the various great rabbis there were in Venezuela, in the country in itself, the rich heritage of the Jewish community, and different synagogues and different happenings that actually took place at various different occasions of times. We've been talking about just over the last few minutes. I just took a break just a few minutes ago about the Jewish community and the amount of, unfortunately, there was anti-Semitism in so on and so forth. And we talked about just recently about, I think it was, now we're talking about the 19th century Jewish community, respectively. During the first half of the 19th century, I think groups of Sephardic Jews begin to, let's say at that point in time, begin to put down roots inside the country. I think it was by 1830, there were already communities in areas like Caracas, Puerto Cabello, Maracaibo, and in Barcelona. The immigrants found, let's just say, a poor country with a precarious rural economy destroyed by civil wars and regional dictators. And in the 1860s, the country's elites began a process of modernization in which prominent Jews, let's say, participated, including someone of the name of famous judge Isaac J. Pardo. He was a banker, and he was a pioneer in the creation of a state bank and in communications and establishing the first national telegraph. So he's a key person in Venezuelan Sephardic Jewry of that point in time. Now, I think the Pardo happened to be a famous, also rabbinic family, if I'm not mistaken. Some of them had key rabbinic roles at various different points in time. That's something that we have to point out. Also, Isaac J. Pardo. So the Pardo family, I'd recommend everyone to learn more within regards to him. Okay, so that's very, very interesting. So I think a new wave of Sephardic immigration would come from Morocco. They would settle in Venezuela at the end of the 19th century. Happened to be the first Moroccan Jews, I think, arrived in 1844, and they would settle in the city of Barcelona, where they obtained authorization to found, I think in 1875, a Jewish cemetery. This was, but there was a great migration that would occur from Tetuan and Tangier and Melilla that would occur in the last decades of that specific century, respectively. New immigrants were very different from, I think, the Jewish people that were already living in Coro, in Barcelona. Even there was from co-religionists in Coro. These descendants of first waves of Venezuelan Jews were completely assimilated, while the Moroccans were very attached to Jewish laws and traditions, as they, let's say, they did not have great fortunes or overseas commercial contracts at that point in time. Moroccans started out as traveling salesmen, then prospered to the point of becoming pioneers in the commerce and industries in the Americas, respectively. And smaller groups of immigrants followed and came to Venezuela, coming from Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, and the Balkans. Very, very interesting enough. So I think according to an official census, at the end of the 19th century, there were as many as 247 Jews in the country as citizens. And I think in 1926, I'm not mistaken, there was 882. However, it's estimated that the number of Jewish inhabitants was much higher, around 2,000, come up the year 1926, which is very, very important. I think let's say there was more needs for the community. Sephardic Jews founded, I think, in 1907, the first community organization, the Sociedad Beneficia Israelita, which would become, I think, in 1930, the Association Israelita de Venezuela. This institution, let's say, based in Caracas, represents, at that point in time, the country's Sephardic Jewish people, I think even today. And in 1936, Association Israelita built the El Condo Synagogue, whose architectural style is reminiscent of the famous Dutch Sephardic synagogues. I think, unfortunately, it was come with the 1950s. I'm actually using over here the Morishal website as a source for what I'm saying. There was the expansion of the city of Caracas, and the synagogue was, I think, unfortunately, demolished at that point in time. It was after the First World War, partly due to new restrictions on immigration imposed by United States, that the first waves of Ashkenazic immigrants began to arrive. They were, let's say, for the most part, younger people who were fleeing economic difficulties and wanted to rebuild their lives. I think these Ashkenazic Jews would come from, Romania, Poland, and Hungary, and various other places. Also, let's just say at that point in time, there was immigration also grew, as we stated before, after the Six-Day War in 1967, when the country received a significant wave of immigration from Morocco and other Latin American countries. And they were, for the most part, qualified professionals, traders, and very well received, I think, by the government at that point in time. And statistics, I think, are chronicled within regards to the 1970s, that there were 30,000 Jewish people in the country, which was quite a high amount. I think there's varying opinions. Some say maybe it was slightly less, but they really grow socially, culturally. I think, let's just say, there were schools, synagogues, community centers, and integration. There was a harmonious picture, but that would, when Hugo Chavez rose to power in 1998, that would be a sharp turn within regards to, let's say, the community in of itself. And there was more worrying times, let's just say, at that stage in time. So, yeah, I'm just going to take a short break for a minute. Anyone that's new over here to the channel, please, friends, subscribe to the channel at the moment. We are nearing, at the moment, a staggering 8,000 subscribers here. So please, anyone that is joining in for the first time over here, please subscribe. I'm going to take a 2-minute break and watch this space. I'm going to come back and we're going to learn more about everything. I'm watching the live chat over here. There's someone that leaves comments quite regularly, so I really appreciate AH Wine. I really appreciate your comments. You join in a lot of the live videos over here. So I don't usually respond to the live commentary, but any of the good comments that I'm getting, I really, really appreciate it. And I'll be back in 1 minute. So everyone, wait 2 minutes. I'll be back and we'll continue the live video over here. Okay, thanks everyone for waiting. At the moment, we're just speaking about the history of Venezuelan Jewry at the moment. So thanks for the patience, and we're going to continue. We're exploring now more within community life in Venezuela. Once again, using now at the moment the Morasha website, which as a excellent resource, let's just say. So we're talking about how in 1998 things would change for Venezuelan Jewry, obviously with the anti-Semitism and let's say Hugo Chavez's rise, let's just say, to power at that point in time. I think the city of Caracas, there was a large Jewish congregation. There was 15 synagogues, and I think all of them actually followed Orthodox rites, let's just say himself. The majority of Jews over there would identify with being cultural, let's say, heritage, let's say maybe more within regards to that than, but the main Sephardic synagogue in Caracas is called the Tiferet Israel, which we mentioned about before, which was built in the year 1956 on the El Conde synagogue, with the beautiful interior, let's just say, in himself, and colored stained glass, let's just say, windows, geometric, floral, and arabesque, let's say, patterns in of itself. The chandeliers, beautiful, original El Conde, as they say. It's actually now the main Ashkenazic synagogue, Eastern European communities in Caracas. Let's say it's more modern. It occupies, let's say, the upper floor at that point in time of the Union Israelite building in the San Bernardia neighborhood, where, let's say, the community of the origin was concentrated at that point in time. The building has offices, cultural spaces, and let's say rooms for events, smachot, respectively, the largest of which can accommodate, very interesting. I think in Caracas itself, there's a majority of school-age children attend the Colegio Morel Y. Lucas Herzl Bialik institution, which merged with the Colegio Hebraico and the Cristobal Colon Sion and the Kolel Nahalat Yaakov schools for the more orthodox line, let's just say, in of itself. Now, the capital's they've got main cultural hubs over there, respectively, in these places also. And the main social organization is a Jewish club called the Hebraica, and the main community magazine is called the Nuevo Mundo Israelita, respectively, over there. So that's very, very interesting. So, those are things that we should point out over here. Now, let's continue over here. We're now speaking about more important, let's say, Venezuelan figures over here. Now, one of them is Isaac J. Pardo. So, according to another place, maybe there were two at that stage in time, because this one lived between 14th of October 1905 to 3rd of March 2000. He happened to have been a Venezuelan intellectual of German Jewish extraction, known for his essays. He would write various different essays. He was born in Caracas in Venezuela in 1905, passed away in 2000, also in Caracas. He was a historian, was a physician. He would win a national prize for literature of Venezuela in 1984, if I'm not mistaken. He was founder of the party, the Union Republicana Democrática, I think in 1945, a director of the El Nacional, and he was a physician, along with Jose Ignacio Baldo, in the hospital of El Gondolo, and very, very interesting. He was another interesting personality over there. Now, in more recent times, a rabbi, I think, from Venezuela, very much an integral part in more modern times, is Rabbi Yaakov Ben Dayan. He happens to be over there. So, very much he's been involved in, or just all over the world, let's just say, also especially in Eretz Israel, within regards to, let's just say, the various different places. I think he actually, if I'm not mistaken, many people from Venezuela would actually really be mitchazek within regards to the strengthening, because there's a kollel balabatim called the Kollel Be'er Yitzchak, which I think was started, I think, started while under his guidership when he was in Venezuela. I think 30 people were learning there every single morning before they went to work. So it was really kollel there, and he would actually bring many various rabbis to come and educate over there, and many people qualified people living in Venezuela, let's just say in of itself, would really be strengthened because of his undertakings. Now, another rabbinic couple that there is, I think, currently in Venezuela is a rabbinic couple named Rabbi Yedidia and Rabbinit Ahuva Toiber. They are part, I think, of the all Torah Stone institutions, the rabbinic shlichot they have done in Caracas in Venezuela, serving, let's just say, the various different Jewish schools over there. We're actually graduates of Strauss Amiel courses that I think offered actually in Israel teachers training program, which is a very, very, let's say, unique program in of itself. So they had the Sephardic community, if I'm not mistaken, over there, and the Kollel over there also, and they had the region's Jewish and Hebrew studies. So they are doing very important works, let's just say, at that stage in time. And I think the Sephardic community has more smaller congregations, let's just say, in itself. And because I think actually currently the economic situation is actually in a recovery period. So there's as many as 4 Jewish schools, about 7 synagogues, I think, representing the Sephardic community, local rabbinate, which supervises with kashrut, and the rich, let's just say, community heritage in of itself is very much preserved within regards to that. So another rabbi I want to speak about is Rabbi Moshe Ben Zaken. Now, once again, from the Ben Zaken rabbinic, let's say, dynasty in of itself, and I think he very much has been an integral part of just world Jewry in of itself. Like, I think he was very much recently part of the West Coast Torah Center in Beverly Hills, I think, which he would actually be a founder of. He was very much branching out all over the places. I think currently, or recent times, he's been building the Kiryat Derek Chaim Haredi Orthodox High School Yeshiva, and his plan in of itself to make a 6-building campus, there, and an 80-student high school for students aged between 14 to 18, let's say 200 yeshiva college, people, let's say, to try and bring it to the land of Israel. I don't know if this actually had been fruition or not. Now, it's actually interesting. Rav Moshe Ben Zaken himself actually comes from Melilla, once again, like many of the Ben Zakens in of itself. His mother's hometown, it's a North African, let's say, Spanish city that shares a border with Morocco. And he's the youngest of 11 children, and which very, very large family. And he, let's just say, he really was imbued with regards to Judaism, Torah in of itself, and we'll talk about how he would, all throughout his life, he will organize Jewish activities for Jewish students in Talmud Torah, respectively, really imbue the people, especially with regards to Psalms, Tehillim, and really, let's say, enter, just get imbued within regards to Torah in of itself. I think he would, if I'm not mistaken, he would study in England later on. He would move to Hebrew University at one stage in time and get a PhD in chemistry, if I'm not mistaken. And I think, and then would end up eventually in, let's say, Los Angeles over there, and will continue, let's say, in blooding. And I think, very, very interesting. Many would go to Venezuela, to England to study over there, and so on and so forth. So that's very, very interesting. So we're learning all about, at the moment, the history of Venezuelan Jewry at the moment here on this special edition. And we are really, I think the Rabbi Ben Zaken who we're speaking about is father of 6 currently, and many of them would actually go, the family would go to Seattle, to Miami, to various different places. And he himself, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was actually also a graduate of Jewish College in London, and also ordained by the Sephardi Chief Rabbinate. And he would go 6 years once again to Holland Park in England, Spanish-Portuguese synagogue over there. I think he would be there for 12 years between 1969 to 1981. He would get Dayanut studies over there, and really, really let's just say over there, just gain his credentials within regards to it. I think 1983 would join Rabbi Elias Levi at the Sephardic congregation of Kahal Yosef, and 4 years he would become the senior rabbi there. 1994 he would preside at the famous bar mitzvah of Rabbi Natan Halevi, who's a leader of the Kahal Yosef over there, respectively. So that's very interesting. So much can be said within regards to him. Now, another key person, let's just say, in the Venezuelan community who chronicles a lot within regards to recent times is Nestor Luis Garrido, a Venezuelan writer, professor, journalist, columnist, and a scriptwriter. And what's interesting, he's given seminars on Jewish literature, Sephardic literature, and Judaism as a way of life. And within, let's just say, the Venezuelan Jewish community, he served as director of the publication called Nuevo Mundo Israelita, I think from 1990. It was a short-lived newspaper, I think, and the magazine Hebraica, if I'm not mistaken, and the founder and director of magazines Ricardo Zager, I think since 2001, and the Magwan Ascuda since 2009, respectively. And very much he's been involved with the Venezuelan community of Yad Vashem, and the Centro de Estudios Sefardis de Caracas, and the cultural institution of the Association Israelita de Venezuela. I think it was between 2012 and 2016 he was responsible for the annual report on anti-Semitism also in Venezuela, which was very much published, I think, annually by the Confederations of Israelite Associations of Venezuela, respectively. And he's written various different scripts, let's just say, on documentaries on Valio La Pane, I think that was it, back in the year 2001, if I'm not mistaken, and the Uno Lama en Cadida, if I'm not mistaken. This was in 2011, which explores more the history of the Ashkenazic Jewish community in Venezuela. So he's very much in all breadths of the sides of Venezuela. He is a key figure, let's just say, in of itself. Now, another key figure that there's been in Venezuela, many rabbis. Well, there was a rabbi named Rabbi Jacobo Garzon, who was very much part of yesteryear, part of the Association Israel de Valencia. He would be very much responsible, let's just say, at that point in time, for most of the teachers in Caracas that were visiting, let's just say, many of the Israelis that would come at a point in time. And he was, I think, connected very much to the Instituto Superior de Estudios Judaicos, which was established, I think, at that point in time for Jewish advanced studies. Now, there's various different articles out there, PhDs out there, which one can actually learn and actually research within regards to the Moroccan Jewish history of Venezuela. There's actually a very, very large, let's just say, a PhD out there, which has actually gone, I think it's actually an excerpt from a book in of itself, where it actually speaks about Moroccan Jewish history and connecting to Venezuela, especially during the 1970s, all during those different specific periods of time. And Rabbi Garzon was very much a head rabbi, let's just say, at that point in time of, let's just say, a key rabbi in Morocco. So that's something that we have to point out. So yeah, so that's very, very interesting. So we'll just say a bit with regards to this PhD itself, which is talking about his time period. Everyone will just wait 1 minute. Just got an excellent article over here, just as another, just to say, a resource within regards to the history of him. I think, yeah. So it was basically just talking about the history within regards to Venezuelan Jewry and how people from Morocco would actually come about that. Now, we spoke about this in previous classes over here, that how many people would actually come from various different parts, especially from Tetuan in Morocco, and they would come and build synagogues, let's just say, at that point in time, and really imbue the Jewish community of Venezuela to a great level in of itself. So very, very interesting. So today we're speaking, anyone that's joining in, we are speaking about the Jewish community of Venezuela. And at the moment, it's a special edition over here. We've already spoken about various different South American Jewish countries, the Jewish history within regards to all those different places in itself. So that's a very, very important project that we are that we're doing at the moment. So we're on the special edition. So anyone that's tuning in at the moment, please subscribe to the channel and join our community. We're going from strength to strength at the moment, and really, really trying to explore just history, the rich heritage of the Venezuelan Jewish community, and so on and so forth. And how so many different traditions have come about and been viewed at various different points in time, let's just say, in of itself. So we've spoken about a list of the various different rabbinic personalities that have come very much, and different studies that have come about. Let's just say the Moroccan Jewish community we've explored within regards to Venezuela, the famous Ben Zaken, a rabbinic family, let's just say, we've actually dealt with, and we've actually spoke about within of itself how much of a crucial point the Ben Zaken family has been, I think, in recent years in Venezuela, and with various different positions that they've had. Remember, I think there's also the Sheba Sephardic Center, which actually train rabbis all over the world. They send a lot of people to the South American countries, respectively, especially to places like Peru, to Venezuela, to Colombia, and all those different places, and really have done huge amounts over there, respectively. So that's something that we have to also point out within regards to the great community over here. So that's very, very interesting. So many of these rabbis, they do a lot of programs. I think there's programs for Balabatim at the moment. There's a morning kollel program, I believe, in Venezuela still. There's kosher options over there, and so on and so forth. So this large community in of itself has been, let's just say, a great haven in of itself of breadth of Torah and the Jewish life to it, and so on and so forth. So that's something that we also have to point out here at the moment. So there's a lot of articles actually you can find actually on the internet with regards to the history of the Jewish community of Venezuela. I recommend everyone to look at it. The vast majority of the Jews happen to be Sephardic, as we stated about before, and I think currently there's about only about 5,000 to 9,000 people at the moment that actually live in Venezuela. So obviously the committee in of itself has let's just say it has actually dwindled a lot. There's famous other personalities which we didn't get a chance to speak to yet. There's Abraham Meza. We mentioned him before. He was a prominent banker and prominent member of the Sephardic population of Curaçao. He was a descendant of Spanish Jews who fled actually the Spanish Inquisition. Many actually left, I think, Portugal, then migrated to Amsterdam. He was a key person over there, and he would actually end up, I think, in the Netherlands before moving to Latin America. Another person is Simon Bolivar, and I think Ibrahim Maza stands out for his help to Simon Bolivar, who gave asylum and economic support for the liberation of Latin America over there at that point in time. And he's another key person, let's just say, within regards to the history of Venezuelan history in of itself. Now, other key figures, we want to now speak about other key personalities in let's talk about the Jewish cemetery of Coro over here for a minute, because we didn't really speak about the cemeteries per se yet. We spoke about a few of the synagogues, but we didn't speak about the cemetery itself. It's the oldest Jewish cemetery in continuous use of Americas, which was mentioned about. I think it can be located back from the 19th century when Spanish Portuguese Jews from the Dutch colony of Curaçao began to migrate to the Venezuelan city of Santa Ana de Coro in 1824. The cemetery started in function in 1832 by Mr. Joseph Curiel and his wife Deborah Levy Maduro, I believe. And they buy the plot of land near the city to bury their daughter Hannah, I think sadly passed away. And in the cemetery there were beautiful tombs, let's say, for the Netherlands and Antilles. I think Venezuelan poet of Sephardic Judaism, someone named Elias David Curiel, 1871 to 1924. He was a poet and a writer. He was most famous among many people, Venezuelan poets, 20th, if I'm not mistaken. He would contribute to various weekly publications, such as in himself. And he studied, I think, at the Federal College, and it was part of the choir college, if I'm not mistaken, by the famous, to say, historian. I don't know about his religious status to point out with regards to him. I think just going back to the cemetery itself. So we spoke about the cemetery just right now. Let's go back to the history of, obviously, we've talked about how the Nicolas Maduro, who we mentioned about before, and Hugo Chavez, when he came in 1999, that really has affected, let's say, on a bad level, the Jewish community over there in the Netherlands, in Venezuela, respectively, at that point in time. So the Jewish community obviously at that point in time, there's many Spanish, Portuguese people over there. Many people would actually move to various different smaller towns. And 20th century, we've already spoken about in great detail over here, that many Ashkenazic Jews would actually come in at that point in time of the time period of the Second World War, especially at the time of there was help the governments, and we talked about how in 1947 there was let's say the favorable voting for Israel at that stage in time, and large waves of Aliyah would actually come in to Venezuela at the time period of the 1967 war, which where, thank God, Israel was very, very much, let's say, successful at that stage in time. We spoke about synagogues and how there's rich diversity, let's just say, of various different communities, especially from Sephardic and Ashkenazic. And we've spoken about various sort of different personalities that actually came from Venezuela. Also, I've been trying to find more information on different rabbis, let's just say, that there were respectively over there, and it's sometimes very difficult to find information on let's just say different people at that point in time, but there were many different writers, people that really integrated into society, became top lawyers over there, were journalists in Venezuela, and had various different key roles that we've also spoken about in general, especially on this entire entire project in of itself. So that's what we are speaking about today. So we spoke also about the attack that actually took place on the Tiferet Israel synagogue. There's a choir synagogue also. Let's speak about that for a minute, because we did mention about that just beforehand. I think it's also in Venezuela. I think near the shores of the Caribbean Sea and the Dutch island of Curaçao. I think the synagogue was originally built in 1730. I think through Francisco Camposo Polanco, let's say, and I think it was purchased by David Abraham Sr., who we mentioned about beforehand, and obviously located in Venezuela. It's a key place also over there. I think resembles the Mikveh Israel Emmanuel Synagogue also, which we also spoke about just beforehand. Also another key place, let's just say, in across the world. So that's very, very interesting. So I think the Mikveh Israel Synagogue, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's associated with many of these synagogues all over the world. I'm not too sure the exact, let's say, religious strands they actually use in of itself, but that is very interesting. So friends, we're just exploring the history. Anyone that's joining into this live video of Venezuelan Jewry, the Jewish community of Venezuela, at the moment it's a special edition over here where we're actually exploring the history of the great rabbis that there might have been also of Venezuela of yesteryear, and religious personalities, and trade relations also within regards to Venezuela and Israel. So that's one thing that we can talk about, the partnership. I think in recent years it obviously got hit since the local since 1998, where there was a change, let's say, in dictatorships that actually took place at that point in time. I think Rabbi Isaac Cohen, the Sephardic chief rabbi of Venezuela, would really, really try and strengthen relations of Venezuela and Israel respectively, especially with the President Nicolas Maduro, if I'm not mistaken. There was actually that yearning for re-establishment of relationships there. I think, interestingly enough, in January 2019, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recognized the President of the National Assembly of Venezuela, Juan Guaido, as the country's acting president. And at that stage in time, and Guaido would actually thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for his support, and really, really encourage recording ambassadors between the two countries, if I'm not mistaken. And it's actually interesting, we did mention about Rabbi Pinchas Brenner. Guaido appointed him as Venezuela's new ambassador to Israel, despite at that point in time, I don't think there was a formal diplomatic relations between the two countries. That's something that we have to point out. So that's very, very interesting. So another key figure, someone named Moshe Jager, if I believe, retired diplomat, I think, was a Zionist, also really a researcher who will chronicle much of this, I think, in a book between 1948 to 1967. That is something else that we have to also point out within regards to the community in of itself. So so very, very interesting. So so there's various different associations attached, let's just say, to the religious faculties in Venezuela. I think there's no general organization itself, but there's a Jewish union which represents the Ashkenazi community, and there's this Venezuelan Jewish organization, the association, which is based in Caracas, which I think very much helps the Sephardic communities in of itself, especially main synagogues. And the Rabinto in Venezuela, the first synagogue, was built, I think, in 1952. We've talked about there's Beit Chabad also in Venezuela, which run by Chabad emissaries operating over there. There's also a place called Magen David, which is, I think, the synagogue of it's Feretz Yisrael, which you mentioned before, Peretz Association, it's a Sephardic center there. Keta HaTorah, there's Ma'or HaTorah, the Or Torah, the Beit Shmuel, and the Bet El, which we spoke about just beforehand also, which is a Sephardic congregation in Caracas, Venezuela, very much affiliated to Jewish Association of Venezuela, which was, as we mentioned about before, was built through the philanthropy of Edmund Safra over there. I think also there's a Hasidic congregation in Caracas, which is headed by Rabbi Meir Rosenblum, who we did mention about beforehand. He's a point that we actually making currently going back to Israel, the relations with Israel and Venezuela, with regards to the Jewish agency, the partnerships there are together. Jewish community in Venezuela, the offshore, respectively, that's something that we have to point out. And there's partnerships. I think there's visits of youth from Venezuela. They go do activities, especially in Shoham in Israel, and they come for a training year, if I'm not mistaken. They host families from Shoham, so there's a special relationship between that city and the Jewish community in of itself, respectively. So you can see a breadth of various different activities going on at various different stages of time. So that's very, very interesting. So so we've spoken about many things. It'll be actually interesting to explore more within regards to the history. I think Ladino was one of the main languages that was spoken, obviously, in Venezuela at that stage in time, because we've spoken about it. And very, very interesting. Library also will chronicle much information and books. There's actually books that's actually published that's available in the National Israel Library itself within regards to the Jewish community of Venezuela. I think, for example, there's a Jews of Venezuela, I think connected to Moises Feldman, if I'm not mistaken, do a famous interview. There's many different chronicles and writings, I think, that have been written all throughout different times, which will actually chronicle over various informations inside this large library of the Venezuelan Jewry, also respectively. So that's the Israeli library is definitely a great source for information within regards to this. I recommend everyone to look at it. There is that big PDF also, which I wanted to point out within regards to the history of Moroccan Jewry and Venezuela. I will actually try and find it, and at one stage hopefully put it on the community bulletin on this at the end of the video. That will definitely be an important thing that I feel we'll have to point. There's mikvaot in Israel, also in Venezuela, also spiritual bath. There's kashrut options also provided in Venezuela. Various different. I think the Association Israelita de Venezuela provide a list of kosher products that comply with Jewish dietary laws, kashrut, and supervise various different commercial establishments to ensure meeting kosher standards, let's say itself. I think it's managed by organizations that ensure food products and establishments adhere to the kashrut over there, including, let's say, rigorous supervision of local companies which certify the products, let's just say, in itself. And the Union Israel de Caracas, I think, serves the Ashkenazic Jewish community over there. Obviously, they would serve and provide kosher products over there, religious items, support the community's social and cultural needs. And you can see many different kosher options that are in Venezuela, really very, very important and central to any country, not just Venezuela itself, but the community in of itself, because how important it is that you've got to have a kosher fabric over there. And we spoke about how Rabbi David Chokron will actually head the synagogue in the Jewish school of Caracas and really have, like, let's say, a integral part also within regards to the kashrut inside the place, respectively. So that's very, very interesting, very important to state it. We're on a special edition over here where we have spoken about the history of Venezuelan Jewry over here, and let's just say, I think Venezuela as a country, the Jewish community has been obviously hard hit since 2023 Gaza war, after the atrocities that actually occurred in on October the 7th over there. I think it actually really would hit hard, I think, after 2014 war at that point in time. And that's what Rabbi Moises Ben-Zaken, one of the great rabbis at that point in time from Venezuela, would actually have said that really because of that 2014 war, that really would affect the Venezuelan community. And that would be another reason why many people would leave to various other places at that point in time. It wasn't just the economy of Venezuela, but it was also that war in 2014. And we can see things, unfortunately, haven't got any better since there was atrocities of Simchat Torah, October the 7th, just over 2 years ago at that point in time. Many of these great Rabbonim would actually are very, very well speaking to other Jewish publications all across the world, which we have to point out also, and they give shiurim, which is let's just say very much available across the world, which I will let's say very much recommend everyone to look at that point in time. So that's very, very interesting. So yeah, very interesting. Anyone joining in live, we're recording a live video within regards to the history of South American Jewry. We're concentrating here today on the country Venezuela over here on this special edition. So we'll always try and explore Jewish life and just the different communities that there were in various different places in of itself. And I think we've actually spoken about in this series about a few rabbis that actually came from Venezuela. We've done a few separate videos, let's just say, in of itself. So it's very, very important, I think, just to watch back the previous videos. Now, Moroccan Jewry, I think itself, would actually come, I think as many as 6,000 Moroccans would actually come to Venezuela, just like they would come to Brazil, to Argentina, to Colombia. I think the two most concentrated populations of Moroccan Jews was both in Brazil and Venezuela itself. Much, much lower amounts would go to places like Mexico and Cuba, itself respectively. And many of them will come from north. They would speak Judeo-Spanish, obviously, Judeo-Arabic and Spanish. And many of them will start coming in the year 1810, especially from Fez, Tangiers, Tetuan, Casablanca, Rabat, Marrakesh. And many of them would end up coming, I think, between 1859 to 1860. And respectively at that point in time, there'll be a larger wave of Moroccan Jewish people will come in 1956, I think, at that point in time. And very, very interesting. So, but Venezuela was the main place to say that they would actually go to and would seek refuge at one time and really, let's just say, really get imbued upon there at that stage in time. So that's something that we will. Moroccan Jewish population, 6,000 people. So probably they were the majority of Jews over there. Dozens of Moroccan Jews came from Tetuan, from Casablanca, the towns in Venezuela before the First World War. And most would arrive after the war. There was restrictions that were on creating religious institutions, would force many of them to live and organize prayer services in their shops. Now, Moroccans trained itinerant rabbis served the Caracas community as well as Jewish communities in other countries. Now, it's interesting. Moroccan Jews started de Venezuela, which is a couple of so they were there. I think in it was replaced in 1963 by the Great Sephardic Synagogue, Tiferet Yisrael, which spoke about. 1998, the Center for Sephardic Studies created a Sephardic Museum. Maurice E. Curiel, which I mentioned about before. He was a prominent Moroccan Jewish banker in the early 1900s. This will actually promote interest in Venezuelan Sephardic Jewish history and cult Moroccan independence in 1956. They would prosper at that point in time. There was a growing economy in Venezuela, unlike it would obviously deteriorate later on. Like Venezuelan Jews, they attended universities, they became doctors, engineers, lawyers, economists, and served national government positions. And the Venezuelan's economy and political environment deteriorated, as mentioned before, in recent years. And many Moroccan Jews emigrated later on to other Latin American countries, also Miami, Panama, Israel also. So that's something that we pointed out from the beginning over here. So we were speaking about, just for a minute, the Venezuelan Jewish community in Morocco, how important it is to actually to speak about that at that stage in time. I think the World Jewish Congress also a lot within regards to, I think, current Vice President, the International Coordinating Director and of the World Jewish Congress is Saul Levine, connected to Venezuela, if I am not mistaken. So that is very interesting. And actually, they also speak a lot within regards to the relationship and the history within regards to the Venezuelan Jewish community, speaking about also about Egypt, Libya, Syrian, Turkish Jews, how they would come there at various different points in time, and about the demographic life and kosher options and religious cultural options, let's just say, there are within regards to, I think there's as many, as we said before, 16 synagogues in Venezuela, all being Orthodox, which is very, very interesting over there, and all different organizations, including the Or Habad over there. And there's various Jewish youth groups also in Venezuela that will actually run under the auspices of Confederation de Asociaciones Israelites de Venezuela, including Noar Le Noir, which offers Shabbatons, youth seminars. There's Tikkun Olam projects also, and I think the Zionistic organizations, leadership trainings, Hadracha, as they say, in of itself, volunteers will come teaching students in the Jewish community of Venezuela and in of itself, and they really do promote Jewish identity. Jewish media also, there's Jewish media options also over there, as we mentioned about various different publications that there happens to be. Prominent sites in Venezuela include obviously the Jewish cemetery in Caracas, also the one in Coro, the oldest Jewish cemetery, which we spoke about before, the Sephardic Museum of Caracas, which we spoke about before, Maurice E. Curiel, we mentioned about him being a key figure over there at that point in time. That actually features various different exhibitions, let's just say, inside and outside Venezuelan Jewish community. So that's very, very important just to note out also over here. Anyone that's tuning in live at the moment, we're doing a live video on the history of Venezuelan Jewry, very much part of this entire section of, let's just say, exploring the life of the great, let's just say, the great South American places of yesteryear. And we're an online encyclopedia where we're trying to explore what were the, especially the Sephardic Jewish communities like in the various different places all across the world. So now we're trying to concentrate these next couple of weeks about the Jewish community, let's just say, of Venezuela, respectively. So I think it's a very, very important project that we're working on over here, and so on and so forth. So just a rich heritage that we see within regards to the various different countries in of itself. So that's something I would very much. We actually recorded a video on Panama, so that many of the rabbis that were part of Venezuela would actually become rabbis in Panama. Now, another rabbi, let's just say, that was Venezuela, also had a huge integral part in Venezuela, was someone named Rabbi David Peretz, if I'm not mistaken. So he would actually become, I believe, the chief rabbi of Panama at a later stage in time, but he came originally from Venezuela. He would serve as a rabbi of the Moroccan community over there, and I think eventually Rabbi Peretz would actually, under the calling of Rabbi Tzion Levi, would want to join his community. So, because I think he would actually leave, Rabbi Peretz would leave Venezuela, obviously because of the deteriorating economy in Venezuela. It will make him his decision to relocate to Panama, like more, let's say, important, and he would actually go to the Shevet Achim congregation, which comprised of 5 synagogues, and make the congregation as one. Remember, he would take over, I think, from Rabbi Tzion Levi. Rabbi Tzion Levi was a chief rabbi of Panama for, I think, 57 or 59 years, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, there was an adjusting period coming from Venezuelan background. He was very, very rich in Latin American culture, so that would help him when he became the head rabbi in Venezuela, Rabbi David Peretz, who will become the chief rabbi of the Sephardic Jewish community in Panama. So his time period coming from Venezuela really, really, let's just say, at that point in time, bring an imbuement, let's just say, and would thrive his leadership as a head rabbi in Panama over there. So that's very interesting. And yes, so obviously many people, I think, would arrive to Panama from Venezuela and Uruguay, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, so that would be a huge point at that point in time, huge beneficial over this. He was another key rabbi that was actually from, had the pulpit role in Venezuela, Rabbi David Peretz, who will eventually become the chief rabbi of Panama. Thanks everyone for joining in. We're recording a live video at the moment on the history of Venezuelan Jewry. If you're new to the channel over here and you found this video over here, please subscribe to the channel and join our community. We're nearing 8,000 subscribers, which is a phenomenal achievement. I don't think we would have ever imagined that we'll get to these specific numbers in of itself. So big shout out to everybody that's joined this live video today. And if we would appreciate it if you could subscribe. Now, we record videos, also biography videos of the history of great rabbis of yesteryear, especially from many of these countries we're speaking about. I think we've spoken about 5 rabbis that might have been great rabbanim in Venezuela, respectively, already inside the series. So it's always great to speak and encompass about that. If you descend from any of the great rabbis, or you come from any of these countries that we're speaking about, and you've got more information to offer us, please, I'll appreciate it. Please send me an email. I would love to hear more information from you, fantastic people out there, and just so that we can all learn more together and get imbued more inside the Torah, the precious Torah in itself. If you feel anyone is interested in watching these videos, please share these videos also to other people, also to join the community. Also, we don't just record videos here on the history of various different countries of yesteryear. We're exploring biography videos of great rabbis that actually hailed from previous year from all these different countries, especially Ottoman rabbis. We're exploring about the rabbis from various other places, also from North Africa, and even Ethiopia. We are trying to explore. So any country that we can get like a sense of great wisdom, we really try and garner in this country. Also on this channel, we are doing videos about the history of various different yeshivot that there were of yesteryear in the various different places. That's another project that we're working on, and the various different famous synagogues that happen to have hailed from various different places. So that's another thing that we very much are speaking about. I really hope that we're going to record a video on the history of Ethiopian Jewry at a future stage here in the near future. And I think that's very, very important to actually record. We also have plans to record about countries like Bolivia, maybe about countries like Paraguay, Argentina we haven't recorded yet, in South America, and maybe about a few other countries also. So it's very, very interesting, and we really hope this is going to come about to a greatness, let's just say, in of itself, and really imbue more. So friends, everyone, thanks for watching in, and watch your space for more excellent content, and don't forget to click the subscribe button and join the community. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day. Take care.